Nazareth. It weren't much of a place to look at up there on that hill. Maybe 200 hillbillies living there in a trailer park. No fort, no walls. No need, really, if you think about it. I mean, who'd want it? Not exactly the kind of place a king would want to build him a palace. But Nazareth was a great place for growing up. Jesus and his family lived there from the time he was a preschooler, and here he was, turning 30, having his coming out party at the synagogue, the same Southern Jewish synagogue where he'd growed up. Pretty much the whole town was there, just like they was every Sabbath. They all knowed young Jesus, Mary's son. Now there was a bit of confusion about Joseph, but everybody considered him as a good man. Teachers was there, mentors, family, friends, peers, even the local librarian. They was all there for the service and the potluck to follow. Now for a Jewish boy, the location of Nazareth couldn't be beat. On the south edge of town is a cliff overlooking the Jezreel Valley. With its sharp drop-off, it provides a magnificent view, as long as you don't play soccer too close to the edge. Of course, as a boy, Jesus was always careful about his soccer ball. Not like his little brother James, no sir. About twice a week, James would give that ball a kick and the ball would start rolling toward that cliff. He'd run after it, watching her go like in slow motion as he tried to talk that ball from rolling over the edge. He'd get there just in time to watch it bounce on down for eternity. In truth, there's a certain majestic beauty about them long, slow bounces as the ball'd trail off in the distance. But then all his friends would leave, 'cause they knowed that James would have to traipse on down half a mile to fetch it, and then half a mile back up, and he'd likely be late for dinner by then. And then would come that sarcasm from his mama that hurt so much. "Why can't you be more like Jesus? Jesus don't never kick his ball down that cliff." Sometimes that made James say "Raka" to his brother in his heart, it did. But he never said it out loud, so he was hoping it didn't count agin him. Anyways, that cliff edge was a favorite place in town, as long as you didn't have nothing that was shaped like a sphere in your position. Young Jesus' Sabbath school teacher'd often take the boys there to teach them Bible stories. From that very special spot, they could see pretty much the entire history of the saints of old unfold before them. Off to the left is the Jordan River, and to the right's the Mediterranean Sea. You can pert near see both bodies of water from here. The whole land is so compact and rich with the history of the saints and sinners of the ages. Just off to the left, blocking the view of the river, Mount Tabor rises out of the plain like a big mound in the middle of a plain, I guess you'd say. That's where Deborah rallied the troops of Israel and had great glory. One day Jesus would be transfigured there, and some of us would see his kingdom coming with power. But that's a later story. Behind us, over them hills, is Cana. Farther on's the north shore of Lake Galilee, including Capernaum, where Jesus would spend much of his ministry. Straight ahead in the valley is the battlefield where Saul and his boy Johnny was both killed. Beyond that, about 50 miles over yonder mountain range, is Jerusalem, where the same would happen to Jesus. On to other sides, Mount Gilboa, where God used Gideon to deliver Israel with only 300 brave men. Nearby is where evil Jezebel went splat onto ground and got eaten by dogs. The boys had always asked for that story, you can be sure. Over to the right's where Elijah had a showdown with old Jezebel's false prophets. Between them two places where Elijah brought a young man back to life. And on this side of the same hill is Nain, where Jesus would do the same. They say stories like that make a boy grow bold. Stories like that make a man walk straight. Yes, sir. Where was I? Oh, right, this cliff. Jesus coming out party. Yeah. Now, when a man turns 30, they have him preach his first sermon to the hometown crowd. Everybody's there, smiling and proud of their homie, as if they'd made him themselves. You know how it is. There's rumors of him making wine at a wedding over yonder in a nearby village. He's so handsome and well-mannered, if a bit peculiar. Never done nobody no wrong. Every eye's on him. He reads from Isaiah. Says that it's being fulfilled this very day. Ooh, doggy. Every Nazarene's thinking they gonna be famous at last. Then Jesus' talk takes a turn they don't like. He quotes 2 stories from the Bible of how God chose to bless Gentiles. The widow in Elijah's time, Naaman the leper. What's up here? Was Jesus saying that God's gonna choose Gentiles? Nothing will get a good Jew's panties up in a wad quicker than talking about God loving people that ain't his chosen ones. The after synagogue crowd's experiencing some serious low blood sugar, and talking about Gentiles ain't helping things none. Sudden like the whole town gets angry and a pit bull seeing a postman. They all's deciding he's not our little boy turned prophet, but a terrible heretic worthy of death. Every one of them men, they grab Jesus and rush off to, you guessed it, the cliff. They surround Jesus, his back at the edge of the cliff. He gazes at his mentors, his teachers, his family, his friends, his librarian. They's all looking at him and then past him to that great valley of history. It's high noon in Nazareth. Now zoom your brain in on Jesus' eyes. Cut to one of the elders, shooting him a steely glare. Cut to Mary, eyes darting back and forth. His old teacher flexes his fingers and cracks his knuckles all sinister-like. Somewhere in the distance, a mourning dove give a coo, and it sounds like that flute sound in an old western. More silence, more close-ups. A cricket lets one fly. Then Jesus, he starts to walk right out through the crowd. Somehow, they can't move to act on murdering this one who quotes stories they done told him themselves, even though they don't understand. Jesus slips through the crowd and leaves. Sure enough, Nazareth has been a great place to grow up, but it ain't a great place to die. The prophet's got to move on to Jerusalem for that. It's right ahead, yonder about 60 mile.